This is the Bianchi E-Omnia X-Type SX 12-speed. 12 speeds, as you might expect. It's a hardtail, kind of a cross-country electric bike with the Rockshox, give you 120 millimeters travel. This is Recon Air, so it's a little bit lighter, tapered steer tube as you'd expect. We've got compression adjust, rebound at the bottom, and of course you can sag this to your body weight. The bike comes in 3 frame sizes, so you can really dial in fit. It's only available in this high step diamond frame. Kind of makes sense for the extra strength that design's going to give you. But there are 2 colors. I would call this sort of a matte or satin black with a little bit of a metallic dark gray accent on the top. And then they have another one that's got these bright blue accents, kind of this color. They call it Celeste. So two colorways, and one that's bright and fun, or sort of the traditional black. This one hides the fenders and all the extra armor really nicely, and all the cables. You can see that this is internally routed. It's definitely a purpose-built frame, and even the dropouts, they are asymmetric. So this one's a little bit shorter and maybe gonna avoid contact with that chain, although we don't have a slap guard, so it's a minor thing. You could use some box tape or buy an aftermarket slap guard to protect it. 56 pounds for this bike, which is kind of a lot for a hardtail electric mountain bike, but it does have plus size tires. These are 2.6 and they're 29ers, so you get that lower attack angle up front. It's just a bigger wheel, helps you overcome taller obstacles more efficiently. These are Kenda Booster. I love that with all the Bianchi bikes, they've got these beautiful rims with reinforcement eyelets, black spokes, black hubs. Everything looks beautiful on these bikes, and it is boost hub spacing, so 148 millimeters in the rear, 110 up front, 15 millimeter through axle on the front, 12 millimeter through axle in the rear. And it's interesting to look at the frame here. There is a cutaway, and I think they're using this frame for another model that has a belt drive. Bianchi has tons of different models. It's a European brand, Italian actually, been around for over 100 years. And it's amazing to see just how custom the frames are here with these integrated lights on both of those seat stays and the integrated headlight. And it's got this little mud guard up here that might keep mud from flicking up into your face, but it feels like it blocks the light. This is more of a B scene, and it does have lights on the side as well. So from a safety standpoint, I really like that. And I could see myself enjoying this as like a kind of a round town slash, you know, trail, go off-road a little bit for fun, maybe one bike for your entire lifestyle. I'm a big fan of the comfort and suspension. The larger tires are going to give you some float and a little bit of additional cushion because of the increased air volume, but we don't have a seat post dropper here, and the seat clamp is sort of unique. You need like a hex wrench to adjust that to go up and down, so it's sort of secure, I guess. But for a mountain bike where you might want to drop that down if you're descending and you're going to use your legs like shock absorbers, that was surprising to me. And this saddle is pretty hard. It's neat, it feels kind of cool, and it looks sweet, but it's just hard, a little bit hard. So 31.6 millimeters on that seat post if you wanted to swap that out. We've got some adjustability up here, 0-degree rise, a shorter stem, and then we've got some spacers. You can go up and down. Nice locking grips. Another piece of armor down here that's clamped onto the lowers of that suspension fork, so it's another little mud guard. And even the battery cover has this like mud guard that's got some space in between it. It feels like kind of a style thing, but I suppose it also adds some utility. Another one back here that could rattle around a little bit more. So depending on where you're riding and what you're doing, you could potentially remove those if you wanted to. You know, from a utility standpoint, I love that they've got bottle cage bosses down there on the down tube, and then a couple more below that top tube, so you could really go nuts with accessories and stuff. And this does use an ABIS key set, and so you could get key to maybe like a folding lock. So there you go, you're kind of in that SUV category, using it around town, still going off-road a little bit. But unfortunately, we don't have rack mounts in the rear. So I think you technically, you know, maybe you can make this work with like a seat clamp or something and connect it there and down here. It might be possible, but it would have been nice to have that. This is the SRAM SX derailleur with a wide 11 to 50 tooth 12-speed cassette. So we have the really large 50 tooth. That's going to help you get started and climb efficiently. And in the front we have a 34 tooth narrow wide chain ring that's going to lock onto that chain. We don't have a guide, but again, in terms of drops and stuff, this should be fairly tight. There is a roller clutch here on the rear derailleur, so you can lock that down. It makes it easier to do drivetrain maintenance or remove that rear wheel. And then we've got these single click shifters, which is great because if you have a multi-shift and you're using up to 85 newton meters of torque from that motor, it could really just like force its way through those sprockets and maybe damage the chain or the sprocket teeth. So that's something I think about, and I'm always trying to be careful when I shift. Thankfully, this is using Bosch e-bike systems, and it's got shift detection. So over 1,000 times per second, the motor controller is measuring pedal cadence, pedal torque, and rear wheel speed. And the rear wheel speed magnet is mounted to the hub on the other side. So it's really tucked away. It's not a magnet that's on the spoke that could get bumped out of place or get dirty. Really appreciate that. It's really tight. One of the best systems around. And this motor here, the Bosch Performance Line CX, it does have a magnesium housing. It's only by 6.39 pounds on this, and it's got some armor on the bottom. Looks really tight. A lot of that weight is low in center, and this has a power tube battery, 625 watt hours, so it's super high capacity. And I think that's why the bike does weigh a little bit more than your average hardtail. Between the boost hub spacing, plus size tires, the high capacity battery, you know, it all starts to add up, the integrated lights and everything. Standard 170 millimeter crank arms, and it doesn't come with these pedals. It comes with like some sort of cage looking pedals. I believe they're steel. Sometimes those can get mashed in and start to rust. I would prefer plastic pedals like this, but I think in a lot of cases people would just replace them. I would consider the Wellgo magnesium like BMX pedals that have adjustable pins. They're pretty lightweight and they give you a lot of good traction. You get the standard 4 amp Bosch charger with this electric bike, which is wonderful since it has a high capacity battery. It's not going to take as long to fill. This only weighs like 1.6, 1.7 pounds, has a proprietary plug interface. You can charge the battery on or off the bike. Since it's high capacity, you know, having ridden bikes like this myself at times, I feel like, okay, there's more than half the battery, I'm just gonna leave it on the bike. But extreme heat and extreme cold can kind of mess with the battery. So if it gets too hot, you're gonna limit the number of full charge cycles you get. It can damage the chemistry and the lithium ion cells inside. And extreme cold would temporarily stunt your range, so you'd only get like half what you normally would. And that's one reason to take the battery inside. But if you leave it on the bike like this and you just wanna plug it in, this is where you would do that. There's a little plug built into the seat tube right here. You can kind of see it in there. And the position on this isn't my favorite. You've got the crank arm going right past. It's kind of low. It's on the left-hand side of the bike, and this doesn't come with a kickstand. Thankfully, there's 40 millimeter mounting provision on the other side. So if you are someone who's a little bit more urban oriented, you could add a kickstand, and the placement is perfect. I don't think you'd get pedal lock or anything. But again, the charging port for the battery is just, it's low, it's on the left side. And a lot of times with mountain bikes, if you lay it down with no kickstand, you lay it on the left-hand side, and you do that to protect the derailleur so this doesn't get bumped by rocks or, you know, logs or anything like that. So imagine the bike is laying on its left-hand side. It's going to be really difficult and heavy, 56 pounds, to get to this and plug it in. So that's kind of a bother. I wish it was right here. That's the perfect place, in my opinion. I also have some complaints about the battery locking cylinder. So we've first got to take this plastic cover off like this. And there we go. It's almost a pound for this, maybe like 0.6 pounds. But it doesn't lock to the frame. So once you take it off, you just kind of set it to the side and try not to forget it. But imagine this is at a bike rack or something. Someone could take that off and mess with it. It's not my favorite. And then to get the battery off, you have to insert the ABIS key, twist. This drops down a little ways. You have to be careful with the little mini fender here and everything just to kind of get it out. 7.7 pounds for that battery. And there's just a little bit more screwing around. Even when you put this back in, you have to set the bottom in and start to push, and you have to twist the key partially to actually get it up in there. I wish this was a little bit easier. I've seen some other Bosch power tube implementations that come in from the side or from the top. This looks really beautiful, and maybe it gets through those bottle cage mounts on the top, but I wish that the cover was locking and that it was just, you know, easier to do. It's definitely a two-hand thing. Then you get ready to put this back up, kind of slot it into place like this, line it up at the bottom, and then push this little plastic piece. Make sure it's locked in there. Another complaint I have is these wires, they're kind of touching that front fender, and if you turn too much and this gets caught over here, it could snag. Now, I'm told they're working on some sort of a routing solution that would put this out of the way a little bit more. but just be wary of that. And note that the headlight doesn't point where you steer. It is visible from the sides, but it just, again, it feels like more of a style choice than pure functionality. And the final piece of hardware here are the hydraulic disc brakes. We've got 3-finger levers, adjustable reach, Shimano or Tektro, kind of depends on supply chain, 180mm rotors front and rear, and we've got dual piston calipers. Pretty standard. You know, maybe a little bit underwhelming. Having a 203mm rotor up front would be better. You get a little bit more mechanical advantage and cooling for something that is fairly heavy. So I would consider all of the electronics like 4th generation Bosch. This is the Purion, sort of an entry-level display, but one that was really popular with EMTBs like this because it's so compact. It's a little bit sleeker, kind of stealthier, and maybe not as distracting. You do have room to mount a phone or other electronic accessories up here, but there's no smartphone app with this particular display. There is a micro USB port over here, but unfortunately that's only for diagnostics, so you're really just limited to what this thing reads. And going through the buttons, we got power up top, plus, minus, and walk mode. Given that it's a heavier bike, being able to press walk, that's going to help you get the bike up something steep if it's a little bit too technical or you're just in a crowded area. We've got speed up top, levels of assist in the middle, and you can also change these readouts by holding minus. We've got a light icon down here. You activate that by holding the plus button. And then a battery infographic with 5 bars. So each bar is roughly 20%. It's not the most precise thing in the world, but when you've got a high capacity battery, you know, that last 20% is still gonna get you a ways. So I've activated the lights. You can see those little LEDs on the side, and then there's the main light aiming. And in the rear, those seat stay lights are just fantastic. And since there isn't a rack or anything, they're going to be visible from many different angles. And I love this. It's very futuristic, almost like Tron or something. So coming back to the display, let's hold that minus button for a second. We'll go from just showing your level of assist to showing your trip distance, your total distance, like an odometer, and then range. Now range is really cool. This is where you're going to get more precise than the battery. So if we press plus, we'll go up to eco, temporarily shows you your assist level, and then it gives you the other readout, in this case range, 56 miles. We go all the way up to turbo, it drops way down to 27 miles. So you can see how this is pretty dynamic. It's based, I believe, on your last mile of riding, and then, you know, the battery capacity here. So depending on your tires and your tire pressure and how much energy you're exerting, this range is going to update, and that's great. The EMTB assist level is pretty cool. So that's the third one from the bottom. I think it relies a little bit more on pedal torque than just giving you like a set profile. So if you don't push very hard, you're just going to be very efficient like eco. And if you start to jam on it, well, then you're going to be much more like turbo, and you don't even have to worry about the assist level. It's just sort of happens automatically, and you can focus on shifting gears and handling the bike and navigating different terrain. So with that said, maybe we'll hop on and do a little test ride. Okay, I'm in turbo mode. I'm just gonna pedal through so you can hear that motor and see how quickly it responds. It's very dynamic. We've got some varied terrain here, so it should be good. No problem. I'm riding with one hand here. I'm not getting full leg extension because the seat isn't set up right. And I climbed up just over there, and it felt really good. So I'm here with Corey, Southern California factory rep for Bianchi, and I'm just gonna hand the camera off so you guys get that third person perspective. Thanks for your help, Corey.
No worries. No worries.
I'm up in turbo mode, so should be good.
Ah!
You know, I was losing traction on my way up, And you know, you can see here, like the brakes are doing pretty well. That's pretty good. Now this is more of a cross-country model. We were also looking at the FX full suspension, you know, all mountain bike, and giving both of these a try. This one has the shallower knobs and it's a little bit more efficient, but yeah, it's still a lot of fun off-road. Oh, what a view. Well guys, that's the E-Omnia X-Type SX 12-speed, 4,300 bucks. It's a pretty special bike, just how thoughtfully it's been designed. I love that it comes with the comprehensive 2-year warranty, including all the Bosch electronics. Even though this isn't the latest and greatest smart system, it is top shelf for last generation, and I think everything is performing very well. I really like the Performance Line CX motor. It's a Class 1 electric bike, permissible on the most number of trails, and it's just a whole lot of fun. Back at the site, ElectricBikeReview.com, I've got all the specs and everything measured by hand. I've also got a comparison tool, so you could look at some other cross-country models and do some comparison shopping. There's also forums, so you can see what people have to say about the brand. You know, Bianchi's been around for over 100 years. It's a pretty cool company. Maybe there are some tips on how to really optimize these fenders and this extra armor and stuff. This is a free review. Bianchi's paid for a hotel for a night, and they've come out and shared the bikes, but my goal is just to be objective and share cool bikes with you and help you out. So love ya, ride safe, and we'll see you next time.